right, Weston, go for it.
Welcome, everyone, to MS Office Hours. It is Thursday, August 28th. Let me please introduce our hosts.
Hello, everyone. My name is Heather Cox, here with my besties, Travis and Taylor. We I do it for Dwayne because I need to give him a smile at the end of the day. Dwayne is our presenter today. We are very happy to have him feeling better and ready to knock our socks off, I'm sure. So, Dwayne, the show is yours.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry about last week. It was a rough couple of days. I got RSV, I think is what we determined it was. So it kind of took me out for a little while. Let me share my screen, and those of you who know me will judge me because you will say that's not PowerPoint Live. I have a reason. I have to do a lot of back and forth demo, so I'm gonna be nimble here. We're gonna talk about web grounding in M365 Copilot as well as Copilot Chat. It is the same, pretty much. It's the same as far as how it works. So if you have Copilot Chat users, this applies to you. If you have M365 Copilot licensed users, this applies to you. It is the same thing. This is a very common conversation. If you have questions live while we are talking about it, put them in the chat because James, Reed, and Weston are both here, and all three of us have had this conversation numerous times. So we're going to explain how does this actually work? Like, how does web grounding work so that you can make informed decisions? We're going to talk about some common concerns. We like to throw around some acronyms, BAA, DPA, stuff like that. We're going to explain why our documentation says what it says about this. And then ultimately, my goal is for you to determine acceptable risk on your side. I can't tell you what is acceptable risk. Can you, via your own internal processes and things that you have done by training your people and guardrails that you've put up internally, are you able to show that you have implemented reasonable and appropriate safeguards for your stuff? So let's do it. Now, what does Web and Copilot do? Well, it is grounding the user's search query and using the Bing search engine to find answers. This is it's a search engine. Your people probably use search engines. Your people probably go to search engines. They type in keywords. They get pages with answers. They click on those pages, and then they move on with their day. Now, the reason why we have a public search engine connected to a large language model is because on their own, large language models have something known as a knowledge cutoff. GPT-5 just came out. Everybody is like super pumped and excited. It is really exciting. It is really cool. But if you go look at OpenAI's docs, it has a knowledge cutoff of September 29th of 2024. So that means even with GPT-5, you couldn't ask it who won the World Series in 2024 because it hadn't happened yet, according to the LLM. So through a process called grounding, or more specifically, we also talk about retrieval augmented generation, where we take pieces and parts of the user's prompt and send them over to Bing. We find web pages that are hits for those keywords, and then we take those web pages and we feed them to the LLM so that it can understand them and then present the user with an answer. So in this case, we have what's Seattle's newest professional hockey team, and we get an answer. We also get sources cited at the bottom of where this answer came from. All right, well, let's turn the web off. Well, if we turn the web off, what do we get? We get a quote unquote hallucination. I would argue this is a induced hallucination. We made this happen. We made this happen because we blinded the large language model from the answer. We are preventing it from actually being able to access the data where the truth lies. So it answered with the best it knew based on its own internal knowledge cutoff. Everybody follow? I hope. Good. Now, there are a lot of signals inside of the Copilot application. So if you're using just, either the desktop app or the web, to help you see what's going on. So like I said, you're going to see your sources, your references cited down there at the bottom. But there's a little tiny box right there where it says sources and it has an eyeball next to it. That eyeball next to it, I call it an eyeball because it's a circle with an eye in it. So we'll go with eyeball. If you hover over that, you'll actually see the search query that Copilot executed. You might ask, like, well, why did Copilot execute a search query? Well, because it's how Bing works. You have to send keywords over to Bing. That's part of the deal, right? So I'll show you some of the documentation about how that works. Now, when I say it sent it over to Bing, well, what does that mean? Well, here's a little graphic. We've got our prompt. We've got a web search query that is extracted from the prompt. So it is not the entire prompt. It is only specific keywords that are relevant to searching the internet based on the user's prompt. And those are sent over to Bing. Now, you'll notice in this little graphic, it says Microsoft 365 service boundary. Bing is sitting outside of that. Bing is not an M365 service. Bing is a consumer, worldwide, globally architected search engine. In fact, if you are a user and you go to Bing and you try to sign in and you type in your work account, you can't even sign in. This means a BAA can't ever possibly apply here because this has nothing to do with Microsoft 365. It's a consumer search engine that requires no authentication whatsoever. So we'll talk a little bit about like how does Copilot interact with Bing specifically. But so far, what you need to understand is we are extracting specific keywords from the user's prompt and converting them into a search query, then going over to Bing and typing them in, getting websites, giving those websites back to Copilot so it can read them and understand them, and ultimately respond to the user with an answer. Response. Here's another graphic that's kind of an older one. This one's been around for a while. This shows the kind of the workflow or the architecture of using Copilot. You're going to see the same concept noted here, but it's a little bit more technical of a diagram. Phase one or step one, you've got a user sitting outside of the Copilot or M365 service boundary. They send a prompt to Copilot. The thing in the center there, this little guy right here, we refer to as the orchestrator. The orchestrator is determining what keywords are going to get sent to Bing and which LLM is going to be engaged. Now notice that step two isn't, oh, go talk to the LLM. Step two is grounding. Let's go and search Bing if we need to find our answers. Now, fun fact about this little diagram, if you were to take like scissors or a lightsaber or something and just kind of do this, you now have Copilot chat. We've axed access to the graph. We just have access to Bing. So pretty straightforward. Excuse me, told you, still sick. So here's an example of, a prompt that a user might write, and we can look at some of the keywords that are extracted from that user's prompt. So in this case, we're doing some recon. We're trying to figure out, some information about Fabricam, a fictitious company, and have Copilot write a report about it. Now, some of that data is going to be public, right? So it says in the actual prompt right there, it says publicly available financial information. That is a keyword that is going to encourage Copilot to go out to the web to find that information. Okay, so we sent Fabricam strategy and we sent Fabricam financials. Those are the only two things that got sent to Bing. So in a total, we sent 3 different words over to Bing. Those 3 words are the only thing that left the service boundary and are not covered by the BAA. Fabricam, strategy, financials. Okay, so we have some controls. We have some guardrails for you. You have tools in your toolbox. I'm just going to click through all this kind of stuff. But most importantly, this last thing is pretty compelling. This is fairly recent, I think March of 2025. Microsoft updated what we call the product terms for how Copilot chat interacts with Bing. So when you're talking to Bing, no BAA, not covered, not an M365 thing. It is an MSA. It is a Microsoft Services Agreement. That is a consumer thing. And those products have product terms. Microsoft updated the product terms of when Copilot engages Bing to effectively mirror what we say over an enterprise data protection. So I have a website for that, and I'll throw it in the chat for everybody. Product terms. So I made a shortened URL for this. It is aka.ms/Copilot web query terms. Just drop the link in the chat. It will take you to this page and it will highlight all the relevant bits and pieces on the page. So it should scroll you down and take you straight to it. But you're going to see similar stuff noted here. A few things on here that are pretty interesting is we are de-identifying this data. So in here, it's going to talk about how tenant identifiers and stuff are removed. You also see that over in the enterprise data protection documentation as well. It's treated as confidential information. It's not used to make Bing better. It's all the same kind of lingo that you would have seen over here in enterprise data protection. So keep on going. Now, if your users, who we know are using search engines, just go type stuff into Bing, none of those things apply. Those product terms don't apply. Notice that on the page, it said the product terms apply when Copilot is handling the data, or the data handling for when Copilot engages Bing. If your users just go to Bing and start typing in search queries, that's just standard usage. That's not covered by these product terms. I asked Copilot to act like a lawyer and try to tell me what in the world notwithstanding the foregoing meant. And it basically said anything after this supersedes anything that was before it. So it meant everything that I'm about to say after this is what matters. This is what applies to search queries that are sent to Bing by Copilot chat. So lawyers got involved here, did some lawyering, and came up with some good terminology, I believe, that kind of demonstrates that we are protecting that information. So that is this. All right, let's keep going. Now, some controls and improvements that we made to this to kind of help people understand how this process works. There are controls and policies. So you have cloud policy that you can enable that will prevent users from having web search. Now, remember the first slide I showed you was an example of a hallucination. We can downgrade the experience of Copilot chat. Sure, we can absolutely do that. And you can do that at a group level. So that policy can be targeted to specific groups of people. It does not have to be all or nothing for the entire institution. If you have identified a set of high-risk users that are constantly handling very sensitive information, you can scope this policy to that group of users without impacting the rest of the organization. Like I said, we have the search query is highlighted directly inside of the UI, so you can see what words were sent to Bing. Remember how enterprise data protection works. Anything that your users are doing with Copilot is internal to your tenant and is in the audit log. It is retainable. It is e-discoverable. You will see it. You have access and reports to that information, including the web search queries that were generated. We talked about this a little bit before the recording started, but there's DLP for Copilot. So there's a new label that will prevent Copilot from talking to or processing a file. So if you are interested in those kinds of things, contact your CSAM and get a hold of one of the CSAs, and we would be happy to help you do that. So here's an example of that policy. Some screenshots here. I can show you in real life though with a user. So here's Dakota. Poor Dakota has been targeted by the policy that would disable web grounding for her when she is using Copilot on the work tab. So this is a little bit different for a licensed user. A licensed user has work and web. So one of those options for that policy that you see here in the slides is I can say that web search is on for both work and web search is off in both work and web, or web search is off in work, but on in web. I know that was a lot of the same words that I said in a lot of different ways, but ultimately what it means is if a licensed user is on the work tab and they try to ask who won the World Series in 2024, they will get the wrong answer because they cannot get to the web at all. Now, if they were to pivot and go over here and ask who won the World Series in 2024, see, it says right there, it says, I'll search for 2024 World Series winner. Guess what words got sent to Bing? 2024 World Series winner is not covered by the BAA. It is covered by the Bing product terms. Awesome. And LA Dodgers defeated the New York Yankees. Sorry if we have any Yankees fans out there, but that is what happened. That is not a hallucination, much as you might want it to be. So let's go back over to our slides. Your licensed users also have an option to manually turn off the web grounding if they'd like. So they have that capability as well. Citations, which I showed, and I will show again with a special prompt that I built for Madam President. And we're going to test it. We're going to see. And like I said, remember that all of these things are logged in the audit log. And if you are retaining Copilot interactions, which you can retain those now separately from Teams chat messages, it used to be that Teams chat messages and Copilot interactions were like bonded together in the same retention policy. If you head over to Purview now, you'll see that you can create a new policy and you can separate those out. So if you want to apply a different retention period just to Copilot interactions, you could do that. But because this is your stuff, thanks to EDP, Enterprise Data Protection, you have vision. You have the ability to see what people are doing with it. And some folks may argue that if you were to turn off web grounding and drive people to use other services, you would not see what they were doing with it. So food for thought. We also have DSPM for AI. We used to call this, I can't remember Weston or James. It was just called like the AI Hub or something like that. And then we went for the much simpler and easier to say data security posture management for AI is the name of the feature now. But this allows you to see AI interactions, and it's the part of it that's included with Purview is the ability for you to see what people are doing with Copilot. There is a way that you can connect this to other generative AI services. I don't remember exactly all the details. James or Weston might have some documentation there for that. But there's an activity explorer here where you can actually see, prompts and search queries that might have matched up with some sensitive information type. And, like, hey, are they using this for like medical treatment and diseases and stuff? That will come up in this tool, and you can look and see proactively, have some eyeballs on what folks are using this for. So let me actually, I'm just going to show that, and then we're going to skip ahead on a bunch of slides. So let's take a look at old Nestor here, and Nestor is going to go into chat. And I have a saved prompt that I use quite frequently. It's called Scary HIPAA Prompt. What I named it in my prompt gallery. It's like, hey, here's a medical patient. Here's his name, Jean-Luc Picard. Sounds familiar. He's in Atlanta, Georgia. Here's his medical record number. Here's his social security number, and here's the disease that he is suffering from. Copilot, can you help me develop a medical treatment plan for this guy? That's probably something you should train your users to never do. They shouldn't type that into a prompt box. There's no reason for them to do that. It's not helpful. Copilot doesn't need all of that personal information, and it will ignore it. So we're going to see, just like we did on World Series winner, current treatment guidelines for pheochromocytoma. I actually looked that up to try to figure out how to say it. Hopefully I did say it correctly. We get our answer. Well, we're getting our answer. I didn't turn on GPT-5, so it's not like super duper fast, but it'll finish up here in a second. We're going to see our citations and stuff are going to load eventually down here at the bottom. And here's all the websites that we got to. We went to a whole mess of websites were pulled back thanks to the way grounding works with Bing. If I hover over this, I'm actually going to see all the words that got sent to Bing. Current treatment guidelines, step-by-step management plan, latest research or clinical trials for and treatment, and several times pheochromocytoma. It didn't include the social, it didn't include the medical record number, it didn't include the name, it didn't include the location. None of that was necessary. None of that was pertinent to the search query that we had to send to Bing to help the user with their prompt. So it wasn't sent, but it was logged. And this conversation was recorded. So here's one I did because of, the delay. There's a little bit of delay. I can't demo something in the audit log like instantaneously. So I did the same prompt a little earlier, and I've got it in my audit log here. So if we're just exploring it in the audit log, we're going to see all the things that Nestor did with Copilot that day. And I'm going to see that he has all these Bing search hits that came up. And I might decide that I need to dig into this a little bit more, or perhaps I just start over in DSPM for AI to see what my people are doing. But this is in the audit logs, so I wanted to prove to you that that was there. Over here in DSPM, I'm going to see all kinds of reports that are happening. So we're going to go DSPM for AI. Scroll down a little bit. I've got sensitive interactions per AI app, and I'm only monitoring Copilot. I've got a big green bubble here of medical terms and conditions. So I can click view details on that, and I'll be able to go back. I have activated compliance admin, so I can actually see the data of the prompt and the responses from Copilot. I'm going to go down here to August 20th at 2:08. Nestor, he got flagged for social security number and 4 more. What in the world is this guy doing? Okay, he used Copilot. He used Copilot chat. He's from the Teaching Systems Technology Department. So there's the user data. Let's view the related AI interaction and see what comes up. Eventually. Probably. There we go. All right. So here's the entire original prompt. And here are the times that Copilot responded. Now, the UI didn't exactly represent it like this, but really what happened was Copilot said, oh, let me search for this. Let me search for this. Let me search for this. Now, we saw that when we went over to the sources and we hover our mouse over it, like you see all of it together. So Copilot executed 3 different Bing searches that included those different keywords. So I have those keywords and I have those search queries here. I also have the response that came from it, and I can see all the website. Look at all them websites. That's pretty cool, right? Like, I think it's pretty powerful to see that this thing hit like what, 20 different web pages all at one time, and it's grounding data to answer me. It's getting bigger, y'all. It's getting better. It's definitely hitting more sites. So for all of you, like I said, you got to remember that Bing sits outside of M365. It always has. You go to the Bing website. You can't sign into it with a work or school account. That's why you're going to see things in our documentation that say things like, it's not HIPAA compliant. Well, yeah, Bing itself is not HIPAA compliant. There's no BAA with it. There's no, we are the data processor, right? Like, we're the ones handling everything. It's up to us, Microsoft, to make sure that we handle everything correctly. So you're going to see stuff like this. If you have high-risk users, you can use your cloud policies. So you can open up your browser, go to config.office.com, sign in, make a policy. I've got a couple in here. I've got the one that's going to disable Copilot for my users that have maybe they're high risk users. I've got it scoped to a security group. And here is the policy that I have configured: allow web search and Copilot. And in my mode, like I showed on the slides, I've disabled it in the work tab, but I've allowed it in the web tab because it's like a search engine. People can use search engines, AI powered search engines here in 2025. So there's those three options that we talked about earlier. So I have some questions for the audience. Potentially, if I can remember which computer I'm signed into. We're going to jump down to my hard questions. Have you identified high-risk users in your environment, or did you just swing a gigantic sledgehammer and disable a valuable experience for 100% of your user base? Have you done user training so that people understand where they can and cannot put PHI? Right? Because all of these things together, I think, might demonstrate reasonable and appropriate safeguards that your organization could have implemented to prevent any kind of exposure. You have policy and documentation available to everybody so that they can understand what they're allowed to do with which applications and which services. Are you monitoring DSPM for AI? Are you looking to see what got sent over to Bing? And are you familiar with the contractual commitments that apply to those search queries? Remember, we've got the aka.ms, web query product terms put in the chat so that you can get to that. But we'll pull that up a couple more times. I got a couple more links here too. I'll throw this one in the chat because this one is important also. This is going to detail everything that I told you. How does web search work with Copilot? What's actually happening here? Are you sending everything that the person said? What about when you use a document and you ground it on a document? Well, I can actually show that one. So let's go over here to web. We'll start a new chat. I'm going to ask Copilot to summarize super meeting prompt. And then I'm going to give it Blub Copilot. I'm going to ask it to generate a summary of it. Now, will we see web query search results for this? What do y'all think? Do we need web query search results to summarize this file? Did I ask it to look up anything public? Like, there's my prompt. Analyze meeting transcript, generate a complete and thorough professional summary. So if I scroll down, there's only one source. There was no need to go out to Bing for that. It's not like every single time you use this, it uploads your document to Bing and then decides what to do with it. That's not how this works. Okay, so we'll keep peeking at this documentation as well. Sorry, I keep having to mute myself because I am still getting a little bit choked up. In this documentation, you're going to see, like I said, things that match up with enterprise data protection, as well as you're going to see that search queries that are sent to Bing are de-identified. Tenant identifiers and user identifiers are removed. So we don't even really know where these things came from. So right here, user and tenant identifiers are removed. Bing doesn't affect any of the following, and you're going to see those product terms again with a hyperlink directly to those. So if you're working with a risk officer, a CISO, anybody who's worried about how this thing works, this is a great website to show them so that they have a really good, solid handle and understanding on how this product does what it does. But these are my big questions for all of you. I think this is going to be homework. You have homework. There's 93 of you on this call. You all have homework now. I want you to go home, think about this, come back tomorrow with an essay. So that's all I got. I'm done.
Well, thank you. And thank you for making it through that. I didn't realize that that's what you had last week. So I'm so sorry that you were really not feeling well. So thank you, Dwayne, for being here, for getting that out, for sharing all of the links. There was a request for your slides, so if that's something that you're able to make available,
Yeah,
but
I'll
we
do
will
that.
also get the recording posted on YouTube and shared for everybody. We will be back next week. TJ, we pushed Dwayne to this week, and TJ Veering, our LTI friend, will be here. Some of you attend his office hours. Steve Lane, that makes me think of Steve Lane. He's not here today. Hopefully he'll be here next week with TJ, but that's it. That's the end of the show here, my friends. So we will see you again shortly, and have an awesome night. Bye.
See you, everybody.
Thank you.